Hey, what's going on, everybody? Back with another video. This is an endgame study by the famous composer of Grigoriev. Just to really briefly, please like, subscribe, hit the thumbs up button if you don't do anything else, just to help the videos go along go along the algorithm, etc., etc. I'll try to make this one a short one and get right into it. But this is really a little primer about making plans and how to think in general in chess. And if you've seen some of my other videos, I'm really big on studying the end game first. Basically taking Capablanca's advice. I know there's a lot of advice out there on how to study chess, but I just find that starting with the quote unquote simpler positions is the best way to go about it. Just briefly, who was Grigoriev? Grigoriev was born in 1895, and he passed away in 1938. He was a four-time Moscow champion. Notice I did not say Soviet champion. He was the city champion of Moscow, 1921, 22, 23, and 29. He played a match versus Alekhine in 1920, a 7-game match, and the game was won 2-0 with 5 draws by Alekhine. So it shows you that Grigoriev was a very strong player, that he was able to even draw 5 games against Alekhine. He also had lost to Botvinnik. He did play in a Russian championship, and according to Wikipedia, it was the 20th Russian chess championship, and he took 5th to 7th place. 5th to 7th place with 8 wins, 6 losses, and only 1 draw. All right, but so he became famous for his chess compositions, and here is one that we're going to look at today. I also want to mention too, like many of these players that played in these times, he had a very interesting life, right? He was drafted into the army in 1917. He fought in the First World War, sent to the front line. He was wounded. He was ill. So unlike today, right, there was no like real such thing as like a professional chess player, right? Unless you were probably maybe the best chess player in the world or something like that. These guys had jobs. They were fighting in wars and things like that, and then teaching. As like Botvinnik, for instance, Max Erva, right? These players were teachers, professors of mathematics, and things like that, and still became great chess players. Now, just to talk about the end of Grigoriev's life real quick. Again, according to Wikipedia, in October 1937, as Grigoriev returned from a trip to the Far East in Siberia, where he gave lectures and played, and the NKVD militia on the train arrested him. Now, the NKVD was like, I guess like a Gestapo, right? Like a military, police, basically like a strong arm of the government, so to speak. So it basically abbreviated as the Interior Ministry, as a secret police of the Soviet Union, right? So they basically like a Gestapo, behind the scenes type situation. All right. So they were like a strong arm of the government. So they arrested Grigoriev, and beat him up and stuff, and I guess from there he became ill, as a result of his treatment. He was interrogated, and of course this was kind of like the beginning of the end for him because he was, ill. He probably wasn't getting the best treatment, etc. And then, complications arose as a result of this. He required surgery, and he never quite recovered. And it says that he died of lung cancer. So of course this has, I was a little skeptical, and if you're interested, I suggest, doing more thorough research, than just the Wikipedia. But I just wanted to give, just a quick rundown, and, not just mention, anything, about Grigoriev. All right. Thanks for your patience. So let's return to this scenario, this position at hand. This is from a composition he made in 1925. It's White to Move. Of course, if you want, please, pause the video and try to, solve the problem yourself. All right. So now I'm going to get into it. All right. Now, when I'm looking at positions like this, of course, I'm not an Nalimov table base, and neither are you. I can't tell you right away, okay, white is winning here. White can draw, black can draw, etc. Right? I know for a fact, okay, that black is not able to win this position, right? Just due to the position of his king and in the corner like that. So if anybody has any winning chances, it will be white. All right. So I would say white has winning chances, but I can't tell you for sure. All right. And I think most people would, look at it like that. Just at a quick glance. What I can tell you at a quick glance right away is that white can win the pawn on b6 by force. And you can tell right away because, well, if you do understand what critical squares are, and if you don't, please check my videos on critical squares and key squares. And that will explain to you how at one glance that you can look at these type of positions and tell if you can win a pawn by force, or you can win the game, from these particular positions. But here I can tell using critical square theory that I can win this pawn right here by force as white. Okay. I cannot tell, however, if the game is actually won, right? Because, black might be able to draw or something like that, gain an opposition, what have you. All right. So the way I would look at this position is in phases. So first thing I would say to myself is to win this game, I know that I must get rid of this pawn. The pawn must be removed from the board. So that would be my phase one. Like, okay, I know I have to be able to win this pawn. And then secondly, I must gain some opposition whereby I can control the key squares in order to promote this pawn right here on b4. Right? But first things first. If I'm black has to try to figure out a way where he can, try to have some kind of drawing opposition, put up the, best defense. He cannot win. He can only try to draw. All right. So knowing your basic end games, what move do you do first? Right? Do you play a move like, king e4? Right? Start going toward the pawn. Right? This is a viable plan, right? It falls in line with this idea of winning, just going after the pawn and winning it by force. Do we play b4 here? Excuse me, b5, right? Which, do we do a move like that? Like what should we do? Okay. Now, understanding critical square theory, and like I said, I'll give you just a brief, trying to get rid of these arrows here. There we go. Understanding critical square theory. I know that as white, if I can occupy any one of these squares highlighted in green, that means I can win this pawn by force. How I know at the very least I should be able to get to this square. If I could get to this square, I win this pawn by force. All right. I also know that if black is able to push this pawn to b5, okay, that he can basically set up a drawn position. The reason is that he can create a scenario that when I capture the pawn on b5, he can then conveniently place his king in front of my king, creating an opposition. So let's look at that first. And this is why you must understand these simple end games. All right. So it's not really about calculating. He does this, I do that. He does this, I do that, and just filling up your mind with a bunch of junk. It's kind of like using like these major ideas, these archetypes, if you will, these chunks of information, right? So one of them that I'm using is knowing that if I get here, I can win this pawn by force. So I know that right away. Okay, so I ask myself, can I get to that square? I think I can. Yes, I can. The second question is, if I allow this move, can black draw immediately? And the answer is also yes. Let's look at it though. Let's say king e4. Black plays b5. All right, let's keep moving. And now it's going to be a draw. There's no way that I can, shake off this opposition here. Right? Because in order for me to be able to win the game, I need control of the the key squares in this case. Right? Again, if you don't know what key squares are and critical squares, please look at my endgame videos on key squares and critical squares. But in this case, white needs to be able to control these squares right here. Not all of them, but one of these 6 squares. And since he cannot do that, it's going to be a draw no matter what you do. You can come back here with white, and then once you push this pawn, it's just gonna be a draw. Right? You can try all kind of funny stuff. And of course, like if you trick your opponent or something like that, but we're not talking about blunders and tricks. You see how black just maintains the opposition. This is the type of stuff you need to be able to see right away. You need to be able to look at the position and see that if black can play b5, he draws. Once you see that, then you know that you cannot make a king move as white. Therefore, you have that in mind. So one chunk of information is, I know I can win this pawn by force. The second chunk of information is, if black is able to play this move, he can draw immediately. So, therefore, what's more important is to stop him from being able to play that move. So, the second question is if I play b5, can I still get to this critical square? All right, and this is when now you have to do a little work. So you know already that the only way you can win. So if I'm playing like a blitz game or I'm in time trouble, I know the only way I can win is play b5. So I would just play this right away, without hesitation. Now he moves, and then the study king b7 is played. Because black is a savvy player, he knows that these critical squares. So he knows he has to stop white from getting to one of these squares. So this is how the play will continue. The study continues. King e4, king c7, king e5. King e5, why is that? So that white can get to one of these squares. And king e5 is important because if king d5, now we give up the opposition. You see? King d7, king e5, king e7, and now black will draw. Why will black draw? Because white is not able to get to one of these squares. Remember, I told you he has to get to one of these critical squares in order to be able to draw. Therefore, white plays king e5, threatening to get to the last of the critical squares. So what does black do? Black plays king d7. He's trying to keep white out of these squares. So you can see what's going on. However, now white has the opposition. He plays king d5. Now black has to move either to the left or to the right, right? Either to c7 or d7. c7, right, keeps him closer to the pawn, right? It would be ridiculous to go to, e7. It would be ridiculous to play e7 because then just king c6 and winning the pawn. So king c7, king e6, right? Celebration. Remember, now we can win this pawn by force. Right, king b7. Other moves can be played. For instance, if black plays here, you already see. Again, winning the pawn by force. But the study, back to the study, king b7, king d6, king b8, trying to set up, the opposition. King c6, best defense, right? King a7, trying to hold on to the pawn. Here's the opposition. Remember, we win the pawn by force. King a8. King takes b6. Mission accomplished. King b8. So this is black's last chance, right? He tries to set up a position of opposition, right, to try to force white away from the pawn, right? Remember, white needs one of these squares in order to promote the pawn. In study, we have king a6. King a6 is going to win. And this is where the study ends. Now I'll just continue it so that you can see how white actually gets control of one of these key squares. So let's say, for example, he goes back, back and forth. It's easy to see. b7. And you can see that black is forced out. You see? White gets control of the key squares now. And he's going to queen this pawn. Again, after king a6, another response is to play king c8. And you can see white now immediately just takes control. And there's nothing to, again, of the key squares. And there's nothing that black can do to stop the promotion of that pawn. So this is why the study ends at king a6. Only other thing to worry about is, again, don't get lazy in these type of positions. So for example, if you did king c6, this would be a waste of all your hard work, because now after king a7, king c7, which would work if the position was shifted over by one file, but here it doesn't because of the geometry of the chessboard, and black has no where to go. He can set up a stalemate after, say, b6, for example. And there's nothing you can do. You would have blown the game. So that's kind of the last monkey wrench that Grigoriev throws in the study here, is this idea that you must play king a6 to secure the victory and control again over the key square. So there it is. There's a quick, short but sweet study by Grigoriev in a king and pawn endgame that, again, at first sight looks very simple, but there is several things that you can grasp from studying these type of endgames. Again, just to reiterate in closing, please hit the thumbs up. If you like this video, please consider supporting my channel in the links below. And any questions or commentary, or if you would like to see future breakdowns of these studies, just let me know in the comments. And thank you once again for your patience, and I'll see you guys on the next video.